My lords, I am pleased to report huge news for our galaxy. Stellaris Season 9 has been announced, along with the details regarding the next 3 DLCs that we are going to get later this year. And I'll say it here first. We are getting a new Hive Minded Fallen Empire and meat ships. The hype is so real. On May 5th, patch 4.0 will drop, which will include a revamp of the pop system and much more. But we will also get the biological expansion that we've been waiting for years. Biogenesis will give us unprecedented power over life and will hope to change the power of organic life in the galaxy as we know it. Genetic Ascension, I hope, will finally be brought into line with the power that machines currently have access to from Machine Age. The Season 9 trailer launches with the crippled UNS Reliant, a United Nations of Earth battleship which is floating dead in space. Its captain, Commander Halloween, explains that they've been attacked and defeated by a machine empire. But all hope is not lost. There are new genetic weapons in what appears to be in the form of a gigantic biological ship. We are also shown glimpses of what appears to be some sort of spectator, a giant floating eye gleaming towards us. And finally, the trailer rounds up by showing us the new species that will enter the galactic stage at the end of this year, the Infernals. I'll break down what we know about the 3 new DLCs, starting with the Biogenesis expansion, which is the one that we'll get on May 5th. Biogenesis will give us a new Hive Fallen Empire, called the Splintered. I cannot overstate how excited I am for this, and I wonder if they are adding a Hive Fallen Empire to the pool. Will they also expand on the lore of the group of Fallen Empires? Furthermore, Splintered is a very interesting name indeed. I wonder if this means that it is not a single Gestalt consciousness in control of the entire Hive, which could also explain how it became fallen in the first place. In fact, the dev diary tells us that there are 3 subspecies or personalities which are struggling to awake within the hive mind. I would guess that they are all sleeping or dormant and will wake up and try to overpower one another in order to unite the hive. I imagine that it will start a little bit like a Federation origin start, but this also sparks the thought that the 3 personalities are likely to be very different in theme, and I would bet good money that one of them will be a devouring swarm type empire, which feels amazing. Imagine a devouring swarm fallen empire consuming the galaxy. This will feel potentially like a brand new crisis, and I think this is huge for Stellaris. We've been crying out for more Fallen Empire content for years now, and it's lovely to see it finally happening. I certainly pray to the Shroud for a narrative about how or why this hive mind fell into the state that it's in. Perhaps it will also tie into the story of Zatanna, the Animator of Clay, Zarquelan, and maybe even the War in Heaven. I of course live in hope. Ironically, the thing I'm most excited for in the DLC is not even close to the main focus of it. We are getting not 1 but 2 new biological shipsets, meat ships, which are stated to have distinct mechanical differences from traditional spacecraft. We are told that we will be able to customize these ships for specialized roles, from ferocious maulers to adaptable support weavers, each capable of empowering allies and weakening foes. This could be quite the addition to fleet combat in Stellaris, considering that we really only have Titans and Juggernauts providing in-system fleet bonuses on the move. This could be a real game changer for fleet combat, and I wonder if this will end up forcing the use of mixed fleets, as I don't think it would be unreasonable to say that the majority of empires will only use monoship types, i.e. fleets of cruisers or battleships. This could work a little like how progenitor hive ships work, but time will of course tell. So does anyone else feel like Tyranids are back on the menu? Will we finally get living spacecraft, giant monsters flying through the galaxy, ready to consume all? On that theme, considering that they tell us we are going to get 2 shipsets, maybe one is the more Farscape style Leviathan, a living ship and pilot, but it fulfills the sort of good element, in contrast to what I can only imagine would be an all-devouring Crisis style shipset. This segues nicely onto the new player crisis, but they are giving very little away here. The player-driven crisis is called Behemoth Fury, and that is all that we know. Given what we got with Machine Age, i.e. Cosmogenesis, I can only imagine that Behemoth Fury is going to be on a similar power level. If I was to speculate, Behemoth sounds quite large, and Fury suggests the large thing is very angry. Are we going to be able to grow something very large and very angry and unleash it upon the galaxy? I really hope so. Moving on to Origins next. With Biogenesis we are getting 3 new Origins: Evolutionary Predators, Wilderness and Starlit Citadel. The first, Evolutionary Predators, feels very Devouring Swarm, or to be fair, potentially Purifier as well. I'm thinking of the Prickty here. I'm sure the genocide lovers will be itching to try that one out. We are told that we will be able to push the boundaries of species traits by unlocking and combining unique phenotype abilities to craft the ultimate adaptive empire. Going back to the Tyranids, this feels extremely Tyranids, hyper-adaptive Devouring Swarm, and I love it. I do wonder how similar to Overtuned this will be, or if we'll end up getting auto-modding mutating traits. I guess we'll find out. Wilderness is the next origin, and on the face of it, this feels like a brand new playstyle. We begin as a sapient planetary ecosystem, a living gestalt of countless life forms united in harmony, seeking to spread its consciousness to the stars. So it feels like a hive mind, but with lots of different individual species. Maybe it's sort of a Broken Shackles style start, but for a gestalt, and obviously a completely different story, but I'm really intrigued to see what they give us with this one. The final new origin that we'll get is Starlit Citadel, which I feel like is going to be tied into the new megastructure that they revealed. This is called the Deep Space Citadel. The description of the origin reads: solve the mystery of your empire's biological attackers while boosting hyperlane choke point strategies with early access to the Deep Space Citadel megastructure. Maybe this relates to the trailer a little bit. In any case, this does sound really fun, and I suspect that it will have a heavy narrative element to it as well. Of course, I cannot wait. Now on to, ironically, the thing I've not discussed yet, but is probably the key element of the Biogenesis DLC, and that is a total overhaul of genetic ascension. We will be able to choose between 3 new ascension paths, so I already feel like it's going to have a similar element to Machine Age's ascension scenarios. The new paths are called cloning, purity and mutation. However, and this is a huge deal, these paths are not mutually exclusive. It appears that we are able to mix and match traditions within the trees, which is awesome. I still feel like we'll only be able to get 5 individual traditions, but we could potentially, if I've understood correctly, take 2 from cloning, 2 from purity, and 1 from mutation. At least, as I state, that's how I've understood it. I suspect that cloning is going to be a massive population growth bonus tree, maybe even similar to how nanites works for machines. Conversely, purity, to me, feels like a small number of really powerful genetic traits, whereas mutation feels like mass auto-modding traits, where your pops will simply adapt to whatever job they have. Bringing organics to a similar power level to machines has been needed since Machine Age, and I cannot wait to see how this turns out. Further to this, it appears that organics will also get access to advanced governments, again similar to how machines did in Machine Age, but there's no further information on that available at the moment. This is, however, an important one, as these advanced governments do offer a fair bit of what I call sleeper power. The best players will pay attention to these, as some of the bonuses they can give you are incredibly substantial, and they are very much worth paying attention to. We will also get new Civic, but have no information on these other than the names. They are genetic identification, crowdsourcing, familiar face, aerospace adaptation, shared genetics, and civil education. Familiar face feels very clone-like, shared genetics does as well. Aerospace adaptation feels like early organic ships perhaps? Time will tell. The DLC also appears to bring with it what the devs are calling exploration of the effects of biological ascension on society. This is rather vague, but I'd bet on it being a similar situation to what we get when we ascend cybernetically or synthetically. We have to pick the ways our individual empires adapt to the changes. I perhaps, obviously, quite enjoy these situation events, as it allows a level of individuality in how you choose to ascend. 16 new genetic species traits will be included, including phenotype-based traits, which sound really cool. Thinking about it, it makes perfect sense that avian bodies would have different traits to humanoid bodies, or toxoid bodies, or so on and so forth. I wonder what traits the different species will begin to acquire. Hollow bones feels like a very avian trait. We will see. I suspect that some of these will also be tied into the new Ascensions, a bit like the modularity perks and how they work for machine empires. If I get early access again, then I'll try and show you the most powerful ones as soon as I'm allowed. I remember with some fondness the 40% reduction boost that I was able to share from Machine Age last year, and it is rather good fun delving into the game early to hunt for these little gems that I can share with you guys. Finally, Biogenesis will also give us portraits that change based on pop strata and leader level. We'll get 2 extra diplomatic rooms and city sets, and 7 new musical tracks. The portraits that change with strata and leader level are interesting. I suspect that they'll have something to do with mutations, and I guess it also means that the pop portraits will be more prominent on the planet UI than they currently are, as I must admit, I rarely pay attention to them, whereas contrastingly the leaders in your government are very prominent, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. New rooms and city sets are of course quite cool. I suspect that we will get some plant stuff and maybe one for the new Hive Fallen Empire, and more music is always a good thing. But it will be interesting to see how they theme the music, as Machine Age had a very different tone. Even going back all the way to Astral Planes, the theme of the music style jumped around a bit. But as I've probably said 20 times already today, time will of course tell. That covers all that we know about the Biogenesis DLC, which drops on May 5th, but the Season 9 Season Pass will also give us an exclusive portrait, which Paradox is calling the Stargazer. Clearly they're wrong, it's Steve the Starfish. But I will say I'm mixed about this one. I think Steve the Starfish is fine, but frankly, Rip the Cube was levels above the Starfish in my opinion, particularly given the way that it was animated and it came apart and went back together. I think it would be fair to say I'm somewhat disappointed with Steve the Starfish, given the levels that Rip the Cube set. Of course, it's still a nice bonus for those who buy the Season Pass. The second DLC that will come in Q3, so July, August or September, and I'd bet good money it will be September, is called Shadows of the Shroud. According to the developers, the psionic plane holds untold power, but at what cost? Shadows of the Shroud is a complete overhaul of the psionic ascension path, which will introduce moral dilemmas, patron allegiances, and a whole new way of interacting with the mysteries of the Shroud. I think it's fair to say I am incredibly happy that we're seeing further expansion into the Shroud and psionics in general. I think alongside with the Fallen Empires, the Shroud offers some of the best storytelling and narrative elements available to us in the game. It's obviously very early days, but the biggest takeaway from this reveal is that the end of the cycle is getting revamped. Ironically, I covered the end of the cycle's relationship with the Toxic God on the channel yesterday, and narratively it has some lovely features, but mechanically the end of the cycle has been in a horrible place for years. It is in theory supposed to be the most powerful entity in the Stellaris universe, the thing that the Zeroni became when they ascended, and yet, in reality, it's a gentle breeze in a forest. This is of course in part due to the massive power creep that Stellaris has experienced over the years, but nevertheless, I am incredibly happy that the end of the cycle is getting the treatment it deserves. And I fully look forward to it deleting the galaxy at some point. It also looks like they are going to embrace some sort of spiritual experience with the Shroud. Whether that means religion or not at this point is unclear. I've stressed this before and I will again. Religion, I think, could be quite fun in Stellaris, but I would like to see whatever power creep they give to it accessible for a materialistic empire, or just an empire in general who is anti-religion or atheist. Balance is really important, especially when you tie in something as thematic as religion. Ironically, I'm probably more excited for some of the elements of Shadows of the Shroud as I am for Biogenesis. I think that the potential the Shroud has is just so high. Of course, I'll try and bring you more news about Shadows of the Shroud when I can. The final DLC of 2025 will be a species pack named the Infernals, which I'm quite confident had already been leaked on Reddit. Whoops. I will say now, I really enjoy a species pack, and it's been a long time since we've had them. I believe Toxoids came out in November 2023, so it's been a whole year and a bit since we've had one. I think, given the lower price point, they generally fill out the galaxy, and they make it feel that much better. But onto the specific species. The Infernals appear to be volcanic creatures, larvae in theme, but not lithoid, which is interesting for sure. The developers state that this is their most ambitious species pack ever. Adapted to relentless heat and volatile landscapes, you will wield the power of extreme environments to reshape the galaxy. Will your empire thrive in the heat, or will it be consumed by the very forces it seeks to command? This species pack will give us yet another player crisis, which I'm pretty sure will be unique for a species pack, although Nemesis does exist, and that is sort of a species pack level DLC. You know what I mean. Volcanic worlds will be introduced as a new planet type, which is interesting given that we have molten worlds already, and I wonder quite how they'll explain the difference between the two, because I'm not quite sure I could. The two new origins also sound enticing. One is about unearthing ancient kin, this has narrative story stamped all over it, and the other reads a little bit like Doomsday, where their home star is dying and the Empire must thrive or survive. I guess that's up to you. As I said at the start of this segment, I like a species pack. Anything that fills out the galaxy is a good thing, and for its relatively cheap price to the other DLCs, or the fact that it's essentially free if you buy the season pass, will hopefully make it a good addition. For the last time will tell. Obviously this style of content is a little bit different to my normal stuff, but if you've enjoyed it, please let me know, please hit the subscribe button, and if you check back in on Thursday, I may get to explore the new meat ships with you all. Happy Monday, folks.